Alright, so I recorded this directly after the Wahoo one, which means I'm picking the stage this time, and I decided to pick Manta Maria. Not for really any particular reason, but I do find the stage very interesting because it's kind of divided in half, like this. Yeah, that's not a great line. I'm gonna try this again. It's kind of divided in half. We have two very different parts of the stage that play very differently. This side of the map is very long range favored. It's very open, and it's also filled with a good bit of one-way drops. Meanwhile, the other part of the map has a lot more interesting cover, a lot more unique terrain, and it's much easier to go forward and backward from multiple different routes. So it creates two very different playing parts of the stage that kind of combine together into one map, and I think that's kind of unique. And I think Manta's other main gimmick of these grates on the top of the map are also really interesting for a lot of different weapons. There obviously makes them a great position for stuff like Crab, but it opens up options for more mobile weapons like dualies or brushes that have unique movement options. They can typically get something else out of this stage, which I think is pretty cool. I like when stages dynamically favor other weapons. So there's a lot to talk about with this map. I think we'll start by going over the retake. Now, if you've watched the other videos in the series, you might realize that the route, the giant one-way drop, might be a little tough to retake on. But you also can't really ignore it. I would say this map is most similar to to Mako Mart, because having a backline up here is nice for the crossfire angle, like it would be for Mako, but you don't really want to retake on this area, but it gives you nice little crossfire, especially to help clear your bunker, because the long-range weapon over here can actually see into your bunker, whereas all your front lines kind of can't, so that's pretty useful. But it is tough to drop down into this court area. It's a one-way drop, it's very shark heavy, and there's also like no cover, which means whatever enemy long-range weapon is up here is going to have a field day and just kill you. So you generally need some kind of special to keep that position. It's a whole mess. The other part of the map is very close quarters favored. Big roller spot over here. You'll see like a lot of rollers or blasters or buckets. And they can play this ledge. And they can flank around on this jump and rush through your street and dive in from the bunker. There's so many ways to get there. You can put like a crab on this wall up here or other specials like that. So there's like a whole mess of fighting that takes quite a long time to get through. I don't think people understand just how long this route getting into middle is. This is really long, and that's where the right side has a bit of an advantage, because this is arguably a lot faster to get to this defensive position, because in order to take that from the other team, they have to go all the way around back here to take snipe, which is pretty rare, but it is insanely valuable. If you can get all the way behind the other team and take this position, it's basically just high ground secured, because you have this area, and this is all the relevant high ground. This kind of sucks because of the grates. This gets ledge camped to death. So if you can push up as an attacking team and take this part of the map, you basically get permanent high ground. You get to push up really far. You have a bunch of ledge camping positions, and being able to give jumps to front lines in this area where they can just run in, get behind you, and stall is so incredibly powerful. This is one of those stages where stuff like brush and dually style flanks can be very powerful. Very hyper-aggressive teams can run you over on this stage when you are being locked out. But ultimately, I think when you are defending, the main things to keep advantage of is this wall could be kind of useful, and this lower part in general is very underrated on retake. If you're able to take that, you can kind of ledge camp against the other team. It gives you a good angle, and most importantly, it's kind of hard for the other team to kill you from there because they have their sharkers over here or people on bunker, and they can't really hit you as easily from there, so it's a good place to get a little bit of a foothold and an angle. But you're usually going to need specials to take both of these positions or a lot of fighting. If the enemy team does overcommit to this side of the map, you have this left drop you can go on. But that's pretty situational. That drop is really only useful if you can get all the way back here. So something like dually that can maybe dodge roll down there, set up a crab, and try and hold the area can be very useful. but it's gonna rely on you having an opening and having tools to pull multiple people without getting punished for it. This wall is also like a hot spot for specials like Jetpack, by the way, on retake, which I figure I should point out. You'll see a lot of good players using specials from there, or just dropping off this wall. Splatlings love doing that, where they're on the wall, they drop, and they just spray anyone here or anyone on the grate, so that's something to keep in mind. But let's talk about the middle of the map once you finally get there. Neutral is pretty complicated on this map. It's hard to deal with people sharking under here, unless if you have this part of the map on the right side. The grates can be annoying to deal with at times, and the zones, while easy to contest, especially from this defensive spot, you can very easily contest your own zone. It's a little bit difficult to take both. But I would say the most important part for retaking on this map is getting the enemy team's bunker. If you can get that position, it's very good, and that's where having this right side has some advantages, because it gives you access to this flank. You can kind of go around here, and like you can go on the side of the block here, and then you have a wall, and you have a lot of cover to get you behind there, and people in the bunker don't really have a way of dealing with you unless they're on this wall, which is another reason why the wall up here can be a powerful position. But if you're able to clear this and get behind them, you get a very powerful flank you could potentially set up on their bunker. If you're a really mobile weapon like Brush and your team gives you time, you could potentially go all the way around, but that's a much more risky play. But just getting this angle alone will be very good, because one thing to keep in mind is you want to condense people this direction. If you push them back, then like you can get them back here and it's fine, but they'll live and they'll retake and they'll be annoying and they can like clear you out of the bunker. And if the defenders can hold this terrain and keep you from getting really far in, the lockout's not that bad. But if you funnel them over here, they have nowhere to go. Your long-range weapons are going to do damage. They're very easy to run at. There's a ledge for your Frauleins to stay under. So ideally, you want to condense the enemy players this way. And so good players are aware of that and will probably try to avoid getting stuck in this area. But it is something that I think is really good to keep in mind. So ideally, that is very important for this stage and how it's played. That's what you want to do. When you get on hold, it's a very aggressive stage. You ideally want to have this and someone down here, and long-range weapon playing some kind of mixture of all of this. But getting into this area can be a little bit tough. If the defending team is smart, they'll probably play back and try to hold this a little bit more. So most important for taking this, obviously specials help a lot, but I think having some kind of weapon that can deal damage or pressure over this wall is good, and then make sure you have teammates approaching from both angles. If you do just the right angle, it's especially easy to stop, but you'd be surprised how many people get pulled by just having a guy threatening to flank over the wall. Will get a lot of people looking the other way, and that's when your team can be able to push in very effectively and take that kind of position from them. And that's where you can go for the lockout, like I've talked about before. Ideally, have your Frauleins push deeper into the enemy base, try to get top left if they can, have ledge camping weapons play the ledges, and be a little careful they don't get past you on the left side. But for the most part, I think you can be pretty lenient on allowing drops here. I think this is one of those stages where it's really important to kind of funnel the enemy team, because if you're going to let them drop down here, great. As long as you can keep them contained in this area, they don't really have anywhere to go, and it's really hard for you to kill people up here. But if they drop down and then you fight them, they have nowhere to go. So you can very easily or often just bait people into dropping and then have your team punish them quite easily, especially if you have their bunker as well. You're going to have a really easy time finding a lot of picks on the other team. So I'd say this stage definitely leans more heavily into aggression. It's a little bit tough for backlines to find positions on this map, but I think this is a very unique stage due to the unique elements like the grates, due to the movement options, due to the kind of split in half middle of the stage that plays very differently, and just how long it is to get from spawn to middle and vice versa is very different for sure. And of course you have the boat painted out of spawn, or take a team picture there. Yeah, I kind of didn't really do too much with it. But that's my thoughts on Manta. I think that this is an important stage to keep in mind, because going the wrong way or not knowing how to deal with some of the things I've talked about here lead to a lot of snowballs. This map is one of those where if people aren't very aware of how it's played, it's going to lead to quick knockouts from the other team, especially in solo queue, so that is very important. But that's all I have to say on Manta Maria. Thank you for watching.